Hello, I'm Simon Whistler, you're watching TopTenzNet, and in the video today we're looking at the top 10 surprising origins behind well-known nicknames.
Number 10. Limey. Back in the old sailing days before modern medical science, sailors constantly feared for their lives, not so much from the ocean but from the threat of scurvy. See, at the time, scurvy was causing sailors to get really sick, and the deaths were causing a lot of problems. Multiple doctors tried various different methods in an attempt to nail down the problem, but none had success until Gilbert Blaine pored over documents collected by a previous doctor named James Cook. After thorough analysis, he concluded that the sailors should be issued limes on their journey, and before long, the problem was basically solved. As it turns out, scurvy wasn't a specific disease, as it was simply what happens when you don't have enough vitamin C, and consuming citrus fruit solved the problem quite nicely. This, of course, led to sailors being known as limeys, and hence the term was born. Of course, it seems absurd that the term is sometimes used in a derogatory manner, as learning how to beat scurvy seems like a pretty smart thing to do. Number 9. Ragamuffin. Ragamuffin is one of the strangest sounding words out there and is often used as a term of endearment for small children. Sometimes it is used if their clothes look particularly dirty or patchy, and some other people basically use it to describe someone who is ragged or unkempt in appearance. However, according to etymologists, you are essentially calling them the devil. See, one etymologist traced back what the roots of the word meant at the time and found that they both led to terms for the devil. Ragamuffin, spelt how we're showing it on the screen now, was believed to be a spelling for a word used in old plays involving the father of all lies, the ridiculous name presumably making it easier to mock him. In some cultures, the devil could appear as a ragged or unkempt man, and ragman is also a term sometimes used for Satan. Now, you might still think that the muffin part sounds absurd, but it turns out that Old Muffin was another name for that pitchfork-wielding menace as well. Number 8. Gypsy. Many people use the word gypsy as slang for anyone who wanders around and doesn't have a real home to call their own. However, the word was originally used to describe a very specific group of nomads, also known as the Romani, and first started to appear in Asia and Europe about 1 millennia ago. They kept little in the way of written records, so their true origins are shrouded in mystery, but the stories go that they were beggars claiming to have left Egypt as penance after abandoning their Christian faith, and some even claimed that their ancient relatives had not helped Jesus and they needed to make amends. Due to people thinking that they were of Egyptian origin, the name gypsies came into common use. Unfortunately, many gypsies were soon accused of various crimes, including theft, and some people especially didn't trust them due to their lack of Christian faith. Before long, gypsies were looked down upon as dirty beggars and thieves. Strangely though, while the wanderer image has stuck with the word, gypsy is rarely ever used as an insult anymore. Number 7. Scamp. While perhaps not as common as it once was, it's still not unheard of to call a kid a little scamp. Usually, it's used to refer to a kid who's being kind of mischievous, but in a clever way that's more endearing than actually annoying, as little children often are. However, this seemingly benign word does not have the most innocent of origins. Now, etymologically, its roots started with a word that meant to run away, and this caused some people to misinterpret it as meaning to run from a battlefield. There is scant evidence for the last part of the theory, though. More likely, many attribute it originally as a term for highway robber, likely because they could steal and then scamper away. So, perhaps you don't want to call your kid a scamp unless your retirement plan is whatever your kid can jack from a car at a stoplight. Number 6. Whiz Kid. Today the term is hardly used anymore, but it refers to a person who's really smart and really successful at a young age. It is also sometimes just used to refer to a kid who shows high levels of genius. However, it has rather odd origins. Originally, the term was considered to refer to just 10 people in the United States, former genius members of the Army Air Force who had worked during World War II in logistical planning. They went to work at Ford in the management sector and were originally called Quiz Kids because they fired off lots of questions so they could understand the business. The group themselves turned it into Whiz Kids to make them sound better, and as their genius improved everything around them, eventually the term took on positive connotations. Their success is evidenced by the fact that it is now a generic term for a young person who is really, really smart. Number 5. Nimrod. Who hasn't heard someone call another person a Nimrod? While this insult pretty much died out after the 90s, there was a time when you couldn't swing a cat without hearing it. And, of course, if you swung a cat into something, you'd likely hear a lot more than just a strange word. For that time, though, it was a very common insult. Of course, the common trope that went around in the late 90s as the word died out of fashion is that it meant great hunter, and was thus, therefore, a very silly insult. However, the truth is even stranger. Unfortunately, there are so many different versions of the legend that it is hard to know which is supposed to be the correct one. They do all have some of the basic elements, though. Nimrod is a mighty king and hunter who worships false idols and behaves in a tyrannical manner. While some legends depict him as more or less reasonable, he is always on the wrong side of history, and doesn't follow God's plan, at least at first. Now, while this means Nimrod makes sense as an insulting term, using it to describe someone as foolish or stupid doesn't make much sense. Nimrod would be a much more accurate term to describe someone like, say, Kim Il-sung or Pol Pot. Number 4. Tomboy. Most people use the term tomboy today as referring to a girl who is into guy things. While not as popular an expression as it used to be, not long ago it was quite common to call a girl who eschewed dolls in favor of playing football and hiking a tomboy. However, the funny thing is that tomboy didn't even originally refer to girls at all. When first used, tomboy was the 1500s version of calling someone a drunken frat boy. In other words, the type of guy who spent all his time drinking, hitting on girls, and thought he was the best thing in the universe. Eventually, the phrase started to shift toward women and took on a more derogatory connotation. This is unsurprising, as with the double standards in gender equality at the time, a woman who behaved in such a manner would likely be considered quite beyond what was ladylike. According to one etymologist, the word tom can also refer to someone who engages in sexual acts for money, making this word pretty insulting to women, no matter how you look at it. Number 3. Brat. We've all heard the term brat many times. Usually it's used to refer to one of those kids who clearly get everything they want from their parents and can get away with anything they want. This has been the common usage of the word for quite a while now, but it has a strange history. For starters, some languages, such as Russian, have a similar term that means something different. While the Russian word is pronounced brat, it simply means brother. While etymologists are uncertain of its origins, many believe that the word brat originally referred to the children of beggars. The etymological trace suggests that the original word the root came from referred to clothes that were in poor repair, which would explain the connection to poor children. While some scholars seem to suggest different definitions, for instance that it was a word to refer to all children, it's likely the word evolved multiple times over the course of history. Number 2. Goon. When you hear the term goon, you probably think of a couple of hired toughs whose job it is to protect their boss, like Rocky's henchman Muggsy in the Bugs Bunny cartoons. However, originally goon just meant someone that was stupid. It turns out, though, that the word has had a lot of history to change its meaning. See, starting in the late 1800s, the Popeye comic was first invented, and it included a character called Alice the Goon. This character was a giant woman, and her people were enslaved by a sea hag to do henchman-type work for her. The popularity of the comic strip led Spike Milligan and Peter Sellers naming their radio program The Goon Show, inadvertently furthering the definition of the word. This word has unfortunately only been seen in an increasingly negative light, as some prisoners of war during World War II used it to mock German soldiers. Number 1. Wonk. If you've ever tuned into a major news network, there's a good chance you've heard a pundit use the word wonk. This word is usually used to mean someone who is very learned in some specific subject, usually politically related. Due to politics being a fairly unpopular subject and the fact that those characteristics of the word tend to be rather obsessive, it often has negative connotations. While normally it is a nickname, its meaning changes if it takes a different form. For example, wonky or wonkiness usually refers to something that is broken, not made properly, or not working as it should be. The silliest thing about this word, though, is that unlike many on the list, it doesn't have a definitive origin. As it turns out, the people who study words say that this one was basically just an invented word. It wasn't derived from any word with a previous meaning. Some people simply thought it sounded like it would be a fun word to describe boring people obsessed with trivial, bureaucratic minutiae and started using it. That's the best thing about language. It evolves to suit our needs and means what we need it to mean.
So I really hope you enjoyed that video. If you did, please do hit that subscribe button on the screen now or below this video. Also, give us a thumbs up if you really liked it. Also, over there on the right, check out some of our other videos, and thank you for watching.